Welcome back, friends and family. I'm Codiferous, and today I'm bringing you Kingdom Hearts All Bosses Ranked. You know how we do it. Before we start this list off, I need to go over a few key points. Firstly, at the Dive into the Heart segment, I chose to take the staff and sacrifice the sword. If you're not familiar with what this means, essentially I was hard nerfed for the entire game, as I didn't have access to the all-essential second chance ability until level 90. Furthermore, I chose to have my adventure begin at midday, meaning that my leveling curve would remain consistent throughout the game. In addition to all of this, the footage shown is recorded from my very first playthrough on Proud Mode, and following this, my list is comprised wholly of my own personal opinion and is not meant to be taken as unshakable fact. Because some bosses like Darkseid and the Final Fantasy characters are fought multiple times, this list will be comprised of unique boss battles, meaning that each boss will only be represented one time and in their most difficult iteration. Also, I will not be including any of the endgame secret heart lists such as the Chimera, Pot Scorpion, or Grand Ghost, as they are more along the lines of elite enemies instead of full-fledged bosses. One final, yet incredibly important note to mention, is that I was underleveled for the entirety of the main story game. Conversely, for the endgame secret bosses, I was level 99 with the ultimate weapon, so I was actually overpowered for the most difficult gauntlet of the game. But I digress. Enough delay, let's jump into things. Number 36, Rock Titan. Starting off this list is a sad excuse of a Hades Cup top dog. Rock Titan has only two distinguishable methods of inflicting damage. As you beat away at his poorly defined calf muscles, he will occasionally stomp the floor, sending out AoE shockwaves. The stomps are so slow it's like he's moving through an atmosphere made of maple syrup and desk gum, so getting hit should be considered a crime against all humanity. After breaking his cankles, the Rock Titan will fall down where you can then climb up and lay the smack down. As you commit to causing double head trauma, he will employ his second means of attack, which shapes out to neck slamming you. A little bit difficult to predict, this attack will catch you here and there, but the damage is nigh insignificant. I suggest tanking all of the head slams while he is in this down state and topping off on your own health until he stands back up to begin the next cycle. Repeat this another time or two and the Hades Cup is yours. Number 35, Darkseid. Darkseid is encountered 3 times in the main story, but as per our rules, he secures only one spot on the list. As the first boss of the game, Darkseid has incredibly telegraphed attacks, large windows of vulnerability, and minimal damage output. His favorite attack will be a large fist into the ground, which will periodically summon shadows to fight you. Focus on cracking his hand like a Sunday school teacher, and you will end up killing the shadows as collateral. The shadows will drop HP orbs for you in the process to keep you healthy. If you're decent at platforming, you can actually jump up Darkseid's arm to get some headshots for bonus damage and tech points. If you're not so good at platforming, then just stick to the ground to maximize your DPS. His second attack will be a thrusting chest cannon. It's exactly as weird as it sounds. Darkseid will gather energy and pop off homing blasts. I didn't know this at first, but you can actually guard reflect these blasts back at him. If you struggle with timing your guard, don't worry, as these homing blasts are fairly easy to dodge otherwise. During this attack, you can attack his hands to keep up the pressure. His final attack is only present in his second and third encounters, but he will reach far into the ground and pull out a Frieza Death Ball. While doing this, he kindly lowers his head at a level for you to deliver some entry-level facial reconstruction. Afterward, he will disperse the Death Ball, which will rain down small orbs of darkness from above. To avoid damage from this, just stay moving. In all phases of the fight, you shouldn't worry about having to reset. Darkseid doesn't boast any crazy attack patterns or one-shot potential. He has long delays between his offense, which you can take full advantage of to analyze and recover. Especially by the time you reach the third encounter with him, he should be a total cakewalk. Number 34, Genie Jafar. Genie Jafar is boring, lackluster, and dreadful. For this fight, you need to chase after Yago and Burge slap the shit out of the lamp. While doing this, Genie Jafar will very slowly reach down and throw magma balls at you for moderate damage. Incredibly telegraphed and spaced out in his attacks, you should seldom take any hits, let alone be killed in this fight. I didn't get any footage of it here because I never got close, but Jafar actually has a second attack where he will swipe at you for standing in his proximity. And that's pretty much it! In honesty, Genie Jafar would have been at the bottom of this list if Yago wasn't such a pain in the ass to track down. Number 33, Behemoth. Recurring more than any other boss in the game, the behemoth is all bark and no bite. Slow as ass with a move pool as shallow as shit, he poses zero challenge even on proud mode. He will slowly prowl across the arena emitting short shockwaves from his steps. Use his strongly defined calf muscles as steps to jump up on his back and chop away at the horn on his face. After a time, the behemoth will charge up his horn and fire off an impressive lightning bolt on your location. If you're lucky, you may accidentally dodge this, but I never found a reliable way to avoid it. This attack will deal substantial damage, but as long as you cast Cure sometime in the next 45 seconds, you should be at no risk of dying to this boss. Number 32, Sabor. I almost didn't put Sabor on this list because I don't consider her to be much of a boss, but here she is! Sabor has fought at a few instances, but her mannerisms don't change much between each encounter. Sabor will leap at you and then retreat when taking too much damage, only to jump out at you once more. Her attacks hit for moderate damage, but she takes a solid amount herself and isn't too heavy on the super armor side of things. Correct utilization of guard and jumping over her attacks will leave this boss with a sight that would make Michael Vick proud. Number 31, Shock, Lock, and Barrel. A rather short encounter given their limited health pool, Shock, Lock, and Barrel are incredibly annoying to fight. They deal more damage than you think necessary, and randomly get super armor on their attacks and movements. The arena is small, and you will often find yourself going to war with the camera angle. Try to focus on them one at a time as to eliminate the number of threats. Not a whole lot to say here, as the path to victory is crystal clear and there's no special attack patterns to speak of. Live out your wildest fantasy of disciplining some small people to your heart's content, with no repercussions of federal involvement, where you can then proceed to the actual boss fight of Halloween Town. Number 30, Opposite Armor, aka Reverse Armor. Opposite Armor is found at your return to Traverse Town after dingle-dangling the bells at the top of the Gizmo shop. It's like the Guard Armor, except his hands are where his feet were, and his feet are where his hands were. Wow wow! His attacks are seemingly less erratic than his former iteration, and swinging wildly will often reward you with accidentally blocking his attacks. I tend to focus on damaging his main body first because Reverse Armor can be annoying if you destroy all of his limbs beforehand, causing him to float around the arena and blast asshole. His damage isn't too outstanding by any measure of the word, and seeing that you have Cure and a stockpile of potions at this point, healing is much easier to come by than it was versus Guard Armor. Stick to him and keep chopping that meat for an easy victory. Number 29, Hercules. Hercules was one of the biggest boss letdowns in the game. At the start of the match, he will bask in his golden godly glow, and then like a gym douchebag doing an Instagram live, flex to a crowd of exactly 0 attendees. While this is happening, all you need to do is lift up a barrel and crack it over his head. This will stun him and render him invulnerable for you to dish out some hits. After a time, you will trigger his revenge value, where he will glow up once more and bust out a wimpy wind-up punch. He will subsequently go back into flexing for his imaginary fans, where you will then repeat the process of barrel stuffing him. He has a second attack in his arsenal that is much more threatening than his wind-up punch, and it can best be described as Hercules invoking his inner Apache helicopter, spitting at you with sword in hand. Unfortunately, he didn't use the attack against me in the footage that I recorded, but I do recollect from my former playthrough that you can either attempt to retreat from this if you are at a good enough distance when he starts the attack, or you can time a guard at the proper moment for better results. Nothing too complex otherwise. I'm not sure what I initially expected from a child of the gods, but it was definitely more than an ancient Greek gym bro. Number 28, Oogie Boogie. If you guys know me, then you're aware of how much I hate boss fights that are comprised of mini-games. While this one is not bad, Oogie Boogie's fight still falls into this grouping of ass putty. Oogie will wall himself on the high ground whilst throwing out Walmart brand bullshit and unwarranted taunts. To beat him, you need to step on the proper panel when it lights up to throw up the gates on either side that will trap him and allow you to get onto his level. At this point, Oogie will surrender his cheeks to the booty overlord as you dish out some serious clappage. He will eventually knock you back into the roulette table, where you will repeat the same motions until you knock the literal crap out of him. After a short cutscene, Oogie will enter the second phase of the fight, where he embodies his house. Don't ask any questions, just hop right to smacking the black blobs on his body. While nearly all of the blobs are found along the way of scaling up the amalgamated mess, one of the blobs is hidden at the backside of the boss. You need to climb up a twisty vine and look to the left to make sure that you get it. This phase isn't difficult, just a bit of a time consumer, as Oogie will spawn Halloween Town trash mobs and throw the occasional fireball to mess with you as you smash things around. Bursting the last boil will cause the Oogie house to implode and happily send you on your way to your next awkward encounter. Number 27, Jafar. Jafar's first iteration is 100% better than his second one, which isn't really saying much seeing as he's still not that much of a challenge. Throughout the battle, Jafar and Genie will be calling out all of their attacks like they're engaged in a shadow game. Jafar will float around the arena casting magic, whilst Genie haphazardly floats at you in a cloud of depression to pass out a street rat bitch slap. Jafar has a few spells in his arsenal. The first is an impressive blizzard attack that deals damage in the center of the arena. That is best avoided by not standing in the center of the arena. His most deadly attack is his focus laser that he shoots from his staff. But by far, his worst move is his ability to run away like a bitch. Just like with Genie and Jafar, the main mechanic of this fight is chasing after the boss like the last TV on Black Friday. It's monotonous, but don't get sloppy or impatient when in pursuit, as Jafar can blast your health away with his death ray. Continue to jump up on the stone slabs and listen for the call out of his death ray, and you'll push on to the less impressive second fight in no time. Number 26. Clayton. It was a tad difficult for me to find a placement for this boss fight because, like a nervous teenage boy on prom night, it can't decide if it wants to be hard or not. Sometimes, Clayton will destroy you in 5 seconds with unprecedented aggression and damage output. Other times, he will just offer his body before you like a virgin to a volcano. This fight kicks off with Clayton and some heartless b-boys. During this, Clayton won't do much except jog here and there before firing off a single shot. If you have the timing, his gunshots can be anime blocked. Ignore the ads and hard focus Clayton to deliver a serious ass whooping that will trigger his second phase. Here, Clayton will mount up on his latest imaginary friend and resume the fight. The stealth sneak, while imposing, isn't anything to be too worried about. With Clayton in tow, the stealth sneak will jump around and make some Pokemon battle cries at you, while the douchebag riding it fires off taunts and gunshots. I suggest air comboing as often as possible. Air combos come out much faster than ground combos do, meaning that they have higher DPS. In addition to this, you'll be hitting Clayton at the same instance, therefore double dipping into your damage output. Clayton will eventually be knocked off of his mount, and this can either make the battle harder or easier depending on the AI. Clayton is a slippery one, and retreats to different areas making you chase after him, while having to avoid his fire along the way. If you're unlucky, the stealth sneak will fire off his homing eye blasts, which do moderate damage and cause Sora to stumble. If Clayton decides to shoot you at the same instance as these homing eye blasts connect, it's almost certain to be a game over at this stage. If the AI is in your favor, Stealth Sneak will choose to entertain itself with Donald and Goofy, giving you some much needed alone time with Clayton. Ooh-wee! While there are 2 bosses present for this fight, the battle ends as soon as you defeat Clayton, where you will promptly be rewarded with the all-coveted Cure spell. Number 25, the Trick Master. Disclaimer: any boss that you encounter before having the Cure spell automatically gets a level up in their difficulty by default, and the Trick Master falls into this category. Found at the end of one of the most annoying worlds in the game, the Trick Master bullies scrubby new players like myself, who haven't quite yet learned the importance of blocking. He kicks off phase 1 by juggling and strutting his stuff. To land hits, I recommend jumping atop the chair or table to reach his face for some aerial combos. If you can spare the magic, use your Thunder Spell to get some guaranteed damage on his face. In tandem with this, I recommend setting Donald to only use his Thunder Spell, as this will actually go a long way for the fight in helping to trigger the Trick Master's vulnerability phase. After taking enough damage, the Trick Master will slump over to double down on his masochism, allowing you some free combos to boot. When he reaches the second phase, the boss will take a detour to the stovetop and light his juggling wands ablaze, where the battle will then take a turn for the worse. Just like with Clayton, the fight becomes AI dependent, as sometimes the Trick Master will remain almost stationary and spam offensive fire spells, which allows you to get easy access to his dome. Other times, if you're unlucky, he will continually destroy the chair and table, rendering you unable to attack him until the furniture decides to reappear. I need to say this now, Guard has so much more value on Proud Mode than it does on Standard, so make liberal use of it as you get better and better at mastering your timing. It will take you a long way on every subsequent boss. Anyways, there isn't much else to this fight. You might find yourself hitting a few game over screens, but this boss is not something worth writing to home about. Number 24, Guard Armor. Wow. Now this boss was a huge pain in the ass, and it was 100% my fault. I was severely underleveled for this battle, and topping that off with not having the cure spell, this boss ruined my life far more than he needed to. Coming off from playing standard difficulty a few years prior, I only remember X button mashing my way to victory, with no grinding done beforehand. It was a harsh lesson for me to learn the importance of level balancing and waiting your turn to attack. Guard Armor destroyed me, and it was because a single mistake would insta-kill me. It felt like I was playing a Mario Maker level instead of fighting the first boss of an RPG. Guard Armor has very basic attacks that revolve around which limb is being used to attack. There's two attacks in particular that require special attention. The first one is his foot slam. The next is his torso spin. Both do incredible amounts of damage this early and are difficult to see coming and counterplay against. As always, attacking wildly will sometimes collide with the boss's attack and cancel it out. With that said, all-out assault may pay off due to this factor, as you will be parrying the boss's offense, but the risk is very high all the same. Just to add insult to injury, each time you go to rematch Guard Armor, you will have to do the preemptive Soldier Heartless encounter, and at this stage of the game, I even ended up dying to the Soldier Heartless almost as much as I did to the boss himself. Hello? Although I died to Guard Armor more than other bosses that rank even higher on this list, I know that if I were to do a second playthrough, I could easily defeat him in a single try, whereas the following bosses have a much higher threat level overall. Number 23, Leon and Yuffie. In line with keeping our rule of repeat boss battles, I am choosing the most challenging iteration of Yuffie and Leon, which is conveniently enough their tag battle in the Pegasus Cup. For this fight, you're going to want to hard focus Yuffie first and ignore damaging Leon. Splitting your focus between both of them will make this battle much more difficult than need be, as they each level up when they get low on health. Yuffie will run about the arena throwing a ridiculous amount of projectiles that have a deceivingly slow missile speed. Luckily, her defenses are pretty weak. Knock the lunch money out of her before turning your attention to Leon. He has some basic sword attacks that you should be able to see coming a mile away. Using guard will pay extremely well against him, as it will halt his momentum and provide opportunity for you to deal some damage yourself. At range, Leon will fire off his signature fireball spell, which can coincidentally be guarded against. Sliding dash is an incredibly useful ability to have for this fight, so if you have it, be sure to equip it. When Leon gets low, he will get super armor and augment his sword with increased range and damage. His attack patterns remain the same, so don't get too intimidated. Time your blocks and offensive maneuvers well, and hopefully, with Yuffie out of the picture, you can snag the win in no time. Number 22, Hades. First off, Hades' voice actor is one of the best in the game. His boss fight, less so. If you go all out X button mashing, you will get destroyed. Hades has a pattern that you need to play to effectively come out ahead. During his introductory palm flamethrowers, hitting Hades with a jumping 360 headshot will interrupt him and allow for some combos. For his ultimate attack, Hades will move to the center of the arena and fire out a flaming pillar from each arm before rotating. As a kid, I got destroyed by this attack, as I would always retreat due to being intimidated by the impressive display of pyrotechnics. What you will need to do is get in there and circle close to Hades. Donald and Goofy will get shreked by this, but pay no mind to their screams of burning agony. Throughout the battle, Hades will enter his enraged state where he becomes cloaked in red flames. His attacks become more aggressive. He obtains super armor, and he introduces his flaming slash attack. Aerial combos are incredibly good against Hades, and often in your whirlwind of keystrokes, you will accidentally evade his onslaught. After a time, he will cool off and go back to his palm throwers. If you stay at a distance, Hades will throw balls of hellfire at you, which you can guard to deflect back at him for some damage and tech points. Hades might kill you a time or two for the fact that he hits pretty damn hard, but as soon as you nailed his moveset, you can walk all over him. Number 21, Parasite Cage, aka the Questionable Kidnapper. The Parasite Cage is encountered 2 times, but as per our rule, we will only be focusing on his more difficult iteration. The Parasite Cage personally gave me trouble for 2 reasons. 1, I was underleveled, no surprise there. And 2, I could not stay out of the acid. Parasite Cage has a shallow yet effective move pool. His most devastating and annoying attack is his regurgitated vomit, where he ingests Monstro's stomach acid and then spews it onto Sora and company. That was a real attractive sentence, I know. This attack will eat away at your health, cannot be blocked, and is fairly difficult to avoid given the generous area that it affects. As far as physical attacks go, the Parasite Cage will swing either of his arms in some sort of limp noodle slap. These slaps deal modest damage, but the move you need to look out for is his cage thrust, signaled by him planting his arms into the ground before briefly rearing back and thrusting forward. It can be guarded or parried against, but because of the speed of the attack, it will definitely take a bit of practice to get down. The biggest problem for this fight will obviously be the environmental hazard. The stomach acid will eat away at your HP as a damage over time debuff, and will continue to do so as long as you are basking in the green goo. Pressing an offense against the Parasite Cage will occasionally put it into a down state, where you then need to attack the blob within. Once he stands back up, brace yourself for a revenge value before running through the motions once more. Just like the Trickmaster, I recommend hitting the Parasite Cage with Gravity or Thunder Magic if you can spare the mana, to assist in putting him into his down state. Whack away until you've eradicated this thing like polio, and you will subsequently complete one of the worst worlds in the game. Number 20, Maleficent, or as I used to call her as a kid, Maleficent. Maleficent is another tedious boss that joins Jafar in the runs like a bitch category. Speaking of Jafar, this fight is very reminiscent in that Maleficent will spend the entirety of the skirmish running and blasting away with magic. She has a little added difficulty, however, as she will also spawn defenders and dark balls as the battle progresses. This fight is more tedious than Jafar, however, as Maleficent can only be reliably attacked after you knock down her platform. This can be done by attacking it with your Keyblade, or, and I wish I knew this when I fought her, by casting Gravity on the platform. Who would have thought? After a short time of attacking her on her high horse, Maleficent will trigger her survival instincts and perform an AoE knockback before going right back to her annoying shenanigans. Her most troubling attack for me was the lightning that she calls down that tracks your location. I recommend hiding underneath her platform to avoid the punishment from this attack. As she shifts her location from one end of the room to the other, Maleficent will call out her meteor attack before sending a storm of, wait for it, meteors at your face. You're going to want to dodge these as the damage from colliding with them can stack up fast. Don't waste too much time on the Heartless adds, as Maleficent will keep them spawned up in a steady supply. While her behaviorisms are predictable, and you only really have 2 attacks to worry about, the sheer damage that she inflicts is enough to keep you at bay. Mechanically, this fight is simple, but believe you me when I say that this will seriously test your patience. Number 19, the Pot Centipede. Battled as your first boss of Agrabah, the Pot Centipede brings you in a warm welcome with a solid challenge. Boasting generous amounts of super armor, endless adds, a moving vulnerability target, and consistent hard to avoid damage, the Pot Centipede was much harder than I originally gave him credit for. The Pot Centipede has the same vulnerability spots as I myself do, that is, the head and ass. I recommend getting out some flip-flops and spanking his thorax and abdomen into oblivion, as attacking him in his face leaves you subject to being damaged. He doesn't do much as far as attacking outside of crawling into you and firing off the occasional discharging whip, but the sheer amount of adds in a closed environment, coupled with the unrelentingness of the boss itself, will keep you on your toes with your healing. I don't have any helpful advice, unfortunately. I just sort of danced my way around the market while spamming Cure and hoped for the best. Number 18, the Cave of Wonders. The Cave of Wonders had the same effect as my encounter with guard armor. I still hadn't ingrained guarding into my brain, but what makes this fight worse is the boss's crappy hitboxes and the endlessly spawning adds. The adds themselves were committing to extreme damage, let alone the eye blast from the cave isn't anything to shake a stick at either. For this battle, you need to attack the cave's eye sockets. You can either climb up the back of it to reach the face, or wait for it to bury its head in the sand, which provides an opportunity for attack. 2 things I hate about boss fights are minigames and inconsistency, and this boss weighs heavily on the latter of the 2. Sometimes you'll be able to air combo for infinity. Other times, you'll miss your initial hit and fall off without so much as singeing an ass hair. the cave will only attack you with Eye Blasts, which can be reflected back with Guard. Again, something that I didn't know at the time. Meanwhile, stay on the lookout for the Heartless that join up, as they can quickly overwhelm you. The Heartless spawns will be signaled each time the cave buries its face into the sand, so when you see this, brace yourself for some Arabian bullshit. I don't have any funny quips to make about this boss because rewatching this footage was a reminder of exactly how salty the fight made me. I feel like I need to make a distinction between dying to a boss because they are innately difficult, and dying to a boss over some asinine reason, as this is ultimately the deciding factor between having a challenging, fulfilling boss experience or a salt-inducing hellhole. While this fight definitely ranks in the top 3 most tilting encounters that I had the displeasure of experiencing, it was still not the hardest. Not by a long shot. Number 17, Ansem Ship, aka the World of Chaos. Japan always has to implement some random weird Resident Evil-ass mutations into their boss fights, don't they? Sephiroth, Albert Wesker, Wyzen, you get the point. After defeating Ansem at the Destiny Land crater, he does what anyone would think to do and vanishes to a different dimension, all the while fusing with a phallic-shaped organic Heartless battleship. After sending Ansem into a coma, you'll have to go and rescue your B-boys from portals of darkness while destroying different parts of the ship. Destroying the small cannons are no problem at all, but you might find yourself in a bit of a challenge versus the phallic face phase. This fight isn't so difficult as it is drawn out and bothersome. Because you are in flight for a majority of the battle, you are unable to dodge or guard, meaning that you will be required to face tank a lot of damage. In a terrible callback to the finale Atlantica, the bow of the ship fires off constant streams of lightning bolts on your location, while at the same time summoning orbs that fire off beams of energy. My only advice is to face tank and press on the attack. Wasting time trying to dodge attacks will not only delay the fight, but will slowly dwindle your MP and potion supply. I shouldn't have to mention this, but Arrow is arguably the best spell in the whole game, so having that up will pay out dividends in soaking up the damage. Focus on attacking the face as much as possible, and tank the bite attacks that are coming in return. I can't give you too much advice here, unfortunately, as it is aerial combat, and you should be aware of how infuriating that can be. Number 16, Final Ansem. The final boss battle is so weird and has so many "this isn't even my final form" moments that I wasn't sure where to make the cutoff from Ansem Seeker of Darkness to Ansem the Flesh Ship. I ultimately decided to break Ansem into 3 fights: his Crater fight, Final Form fight, and the World of Chaos fight. This entry features Final Ansem, aka Shirtless Spandex Ansem. This battle involves facing off against Ansem after he is fused with the World of Chaos. He will remain stationary and will make no attempt to defend himself against your onslaught. Because you are airborne, you are unable to dodge roll or block, so you know what that means. Face tank and crush that X button. Ansem has several attacks that he will perform, but because you're going to have your face stuffed with his assless chaps, you're probably not going to see them coming. He will spam the same whirling attack while experiencing blunt force trauma from a rather large instrument that is commonly utilized in operating locking mechanisms. Nothing special to talk about here. The second time you fight him, which is technically later on in the same fight, you'll be accompanied by Donald and Goofy. Ansem will introduce a Dark Singularity attack that pulls you in before detonating for modest damage. Your options for the Singularity attack are to either power through it and damage him as much as you can, or to glide out of its range instead. The choice is yours. In any case, before you fight Ansem at the end of the game, be certain to load up Sora's inventory with ethers and potions, as the entirety of this fight is a gauntlet and has a ridiculous amount of consecutive phases for you to go through. The thing that will give you the most trouble in this battle is the never-ending orbs of light that spawn on location to fire lasers at you. Hectically gliding seems to dodge these for the most part, but when you become stationary to unleash your combos on Ansem, be prepared for Sora to have his body hair forcibly removed. Ansem's Guardian only has 2 means of contributing to this fight, both of which are huge impediments. Occasionally, the Guardian will knock you away where you will be forced to fly back into the fray, while dodging more of those well-designed and well-balanced lasers. When not doing this, the Guardian will open his mouth and drain your MP for a time. This fight is one of my least favorite in the whole game for reasons twofold. 1, this entire battle with Ansem in the World of Chaos is random as hell and doesn't fit at all with the rest of the game, and 2, any fight that takes away your ability to dodge roll or guard is textbook taint seepage. Number 15, Ursula. Ursula, while not a particularly hard fight, is one of the more annoying ones. You guys all know me by now. I hate boss fights that have a minigame implemented in them. This fight involves hitting Ursula's cauldron with magic while avoiding her surprisingly strong eel groupies. Some people have said that using a specific spell when the cauldron glows a specific color is the way to go, but in my experience, just hitting the cauldron with any spell seemed to work. After overflowing the cauldron, Ursula will become vulnerable for you to whack her around for being an insufferable shit-talker. Ursula's most dangerous attack will be her cackling maelstrom. She will laugh maniacally and spin around the arena, and because Atlantica is the second worst world in the entire game, you cannot block or dodge roll. So to avoid this attack, you are depending on barrel rolls and RNG. Don't waste too much of your time on Flotsam and Jetsam, as after knocking them out, Ursula will always cure them. Just focus on the cauldron and the Sea Witch and get this over with ASAP. Number 14, Cloud and Leon. A bit of an upgrade from the former Final Fantasy pairing of Leon and Yuffie, the battle against Cloud and Leon is found in the Hades Cup at the 20th seed. You're going to want to focus Cloud first, as he is the bigger threat. Cloud pushes at you relentlessly with Sonic Blades. He will swap between this and his usual sword combo. Careful timing with guard will see a lot of value in this, as you'll be able to punish Cloud at every turn. Leon will do the same antics as before, so hopefully Donald and Goofy can provide some cover and shield you with their faces. When Cloud gets low, he will unleash his Omni Slash, which can be incredibly devastating if you forget how to use the square button. Hold out and guard each time he swoops in at you to completely nullify his trump card. After dealing with Cloud, quickly turn your attention to Leon. Repeat the same tactics as before, and Leon will be bowing out for the rest of the game. I want to clarify that Leon does in fact make this list twice, but you have to understand that this is because the most difficult iteration of Yuffie and Cloud is in the respective pairings with Leon. And as for Leon's most difficult iteration, well, I'll let you guys decide. Number 13, Riku Ansem. Sora and Riku's interactions and relationship in Kingdom Hearts is 100% inspired from Naruto and Sasuke. Change my mind. After Riku is seduced to the dark side by Ansem, Sora will fight him at the climax of Hollow Bastion. In this 1v1 battle, Riku has a variety of attacks, different phases, and an ultimate. While not the most difficult battle, this is easily one of the best boss fights in the entire game overall. He kicks things off with basic rushing slash combos and a whirling revenge value. You can clash your Keyblade with the strikes to cause him to stumble and open up windows for attack. As always, keep arrow up at all times and your guard at the ready. As he gets lower on health, he will enter his second phase and add dark energy to his attacks that discharge upon swinging his blade. Riku's ultimate attack is Dark Aura, which has him blinking and dashing repeatedly at different angles before ending in a Grand Slam dunk that fires dark geysers across the battlefield. This attack, while dangerous, is easily circumvented if you simply jump up and glide over it. Worst case scenario, you get hit by a geyser or two. While great in presentation and solid in its delivery, this boss fight seems to fall a bit short as Riku doesn't have an incredibly large health bar. Just when the fight's getting good, you'll find yourself at the ending cutscene. Number 12, Chernobog, aka Fantasia. One of the most memorable bosses from my childhood. I always called this boss Fantasia as I didn't know his actual name at the time, only the name of the movie that he came from. In keeping up with this theme, Chernobog specializes in fire-based attacks and will open things up by breathing fire and blasting the occasional fireball from his palms. This fight becomes a bit of a drag as he will repeatedly knock you away with the beat of his wings and proceed to snipe you out with ranged attacks. He starts things off incredibly slow but amps up as soon as he hits his second phase, bringing out his world-famous AoE flaming pillars of taint stains. This attack is signaled when Chernobog lowers his head, acting like he's in a down state. A moment later, he will rise up and surround himself with enormous jets of fire that deal heavy damage for each second that you're in it. Just saying it now, expect Goofy and Donald to be permadead from this attack. Arrow is incredibly important for this fight as it bolsters your defenses so you can tank the flaming pillars as you unleash blunt force trauma upon Chernobog's well-defined dome. In the final stretch of the fight, he will summon the same light orbs that Final Ansem does, which will appear before you and fire off lasers. As with all bullshit, flight, and swim gimmicks in this game, you cannot block or dodge roll, so best of luck in avoiding his attacks. So long as you don't take too many flame pillars to the face, you should be able to push through okay. It will definitely take some practice given his damage output, but Chernobog has a shallow move pool that you will learn from quickly enough. Number 11, Ansem Crater Fight. Ansem has so many different forms, he might as well be a damn Eevee. For this list, we are choosing Ansem's Crater Fight over his first initial fight. Leading into this battle, you will have already fought Ansem at the beach with the help of Donald and Goofy, as well as battling Darkseid for the third time. Here, our favorite Darkness worshipper levels up the game with a more impressive and threatening moveset than he had 2 minutes ago. Ansem has 2 dangerous attacks you need to look out for. His first is his close quarters, Submit! Getting hit by this will curse you, as hitting a command at the wrong time will cause his stand to come out and awkwardly manhandle you. While being manhandled, Ansem will float at you and generate an energy shield that will inflict damage should he come into contact with you. His second attack is a rushing charge where Ansem speeds across the arena trying to ram into you for moderate damage. I didn't get footage of the attack unfortunately, as he didn't get to use it on me, but he will prelude the attack by screaming, "Take this!" Guard at the appropriate time like I did and you will cancel the entire move out. Outside of these 2 attacks, Ansem has his visually impressive yet lackluster ultimate, Final Darkness. He will glow with the aura of Ultra Instinct before setting his guardian into the earth below. His stand will then erupt from beneath you for several instances before returning to him and unleashing blasts of energy in all directions. As cool as this attack is, you can avoid it by dodge rolling in a circle around him. In my opinion, this is the most difficult phase of Ansem, especially for a first time player, so do not be discouraged if you die here. The key to this fight is guarding his rushing attack, as there is otherwise no real way around it. One final thing to mention is that this fight upholds the ass factor, in that each time you rematch Ansem, you will have to do the preemptive fight versus Darkseid, which only adds to the list of things in this game that actively test your patience and sanity. Number 10, Captain Hook. Captain Hook honestly surprised me in my Proud Mode playthrough. On Standard Mode, you can man mode your way through this entire fight and not even see his entire arsenal. On Proud Mode, it's not so simple. Hook has high damage output and random bursts of super armor that when combined together can put you in a world of trouble. Not to mention that he is accompanied by some of the most outrageous ads in the entire game. You're in for a fight here. Hook deals substantial damage with each of his attacks. At a distance, he will throw gift-wrapped explosives, signaled by his exclamation of FIRE! Up close, he will take short jabs at you with his sword. 2 attacks you need to watch out for are his parry and his Bilgewater combo. For his parry, he will raise his hook up and taunt you by saying, "Come and get it!" If you strike, he will deflect and counterattack with his sword. His Bilgewater combo is comprised of him slashing wildly in all directions. This attack can be parried, but if he chooses to do it while you're wide open, there lies a solid chance of him killing you. Hit and run tactics will see some success, but Hook's one-shot potential is on the higher end of things, so I suggest going hard in the paint with aerial combos and hope that you accidentally deflect or avoid his attacks as you bust out your best dance moves. The worst part about all of this is that much like the guard armor boss, each time you rematch Hook, you will have to do the initial Heartless encounter. The amount of times I had to do this shit gave me flashbacks to my experience fighting Volf, Ruler of Storms. Number 9, Cerberus. For a first-time player on Proud Mode, this boss was the first legitimate wall of the game. Cerberus has sporadic chomps and super armor with unbalanced damage output. Going full aggressive will see you getting completely eaten alive. The safest way to damage Cerberus is to attack 2 times, just after he's chomped. Do not go for a full combo finisher because you will be hit every single time by his bites. Once Cerberus gets bored of grinding his teeth down, he will peruse the arena and fire off partial homing blasts that are easily dodged. As with nearly every boss projectile, you can time a guard or attack at the right moment to launch these back at him. Once again, something that I didn't know at the time. When he hits his second phase, Cerberus will introduce his Underworld Vomit attack. As the name would imply, Cerberus will upchuck darkness into the floor, which will cause pillars of darkness to appear at your location. Between this and the homing death balls, the battle essentially shifts to being a game of running away and then taking pot shots at the boss's molars. This fight is very time consuming, but it demands your patience as attempting to rush can easily get you killed and force you to restart the encounter. And trust me when I say that this is a fight that you want to succeed on the first time. Number 8, Maleficent Dragon. One of the hardest bosses on standard difficulty, easily finds her way into the top 10 on Proud Mode. Maleficent Dragon is a terror to new players. This boss is all about zone control and playing around the map hazards. Sheets of burning earth, homing fireballs, chomp combos, and stomping shockwaves will have your eyes glued to the screen as you attempt to activate your Sharingan in an effort to counter all of these simultaneous threats. The real secret to her overwhelming difficulty comes from the shockwaves that are emitted with each stomp. you are forced to constantly move as to avoid a live cremation. Arrow up and start a swinging away at her dome. Stay airborne as often as possible to avoid the burning earth and shockwaves, as they are her biggest damage dealers. When Maleficent starts chomping wildly, space out until she's done before going back in. There's no easy way to go about this fight. Trial and error, luck, as well as some good practice are all necessary components to see victory in the face of this onslaught. Overall, you're going to want to lean more on the aggressive side of things, as opposed to playing the spaced out patient route. I should add that Maleficent Dragon's only vulnerable spot to attack is her face, so don't bother with any of that jumping on the Hydra's back shenanigans. Number 7. Shadow Sora. I've beaten Kingdom Hearts twice. Once when I was a kid, and now recently as an adult. Since playing, I would remember with a hazy familiarity the gist of each boss fight, but to be honest, I do not remember the Shadow Sora fight at all from the days of my youth. I had nothing to prepare for this, and nothing could have. Shadow Sora starts off easy enough. He will attack with the basic 3-hit ground combo that you've come to memorize at this point. Guard, jumping away, or dodge roll will suffice in avoiding damage here. When he finishes his attack, that's when you go in for yours. At the thrust point of the fight, Shadow Sora will get into this tilting pattern of melting into the floor, and then popping out with Shadow Clones to unleash a hard-hitting combo finisher, without actually executing a combo of any kind. His damage is no joke, and he has plenty of invincibility frames to really drag this fight out into tilting you and causing sloppy mistakes. As always, patience is incredibly key for this fight, as Shadow Sora hard punishes your slip-ups. Take your time, because just like with Cerberus, this is a fight that you want to get right on the first try. Number 6. Giant Ursula. On normal difficulty, Ursula is annoying. On Proud mode, this boss fight was my personal hell. The level of rage and despair that I felt was both shocking and demoralizing. Things start off easy enough as you boost into her face to put to practice your amateur dental ventures. Ursula will blow bubbles and cast the occasional thunder spell. Nothing too scary. Yet. Proceeding to her second phase, Ursula will create a vortex around you as she attempts to inhale you, to where she will then take a chomp out of you. You can either attempt to dolphin kick your way until she's done with the big suck, or you can be like me and tank the attack to keep up the pressure. As she gets lower and lower on health, however, this boss fight becomes such a fustercluck of thunder cockamamie that I needed 2 horse tranquilizers and a tall glass of LaCroix to cope with the aftermath. The lightning strikes literally never stop coming. And given the asinine and assiduous ass mechanics of being underwater, you can't block and you can't guard. Was I underleveled? Probably. Should this fight have been this infuriatingly fucked? Hell no! Outside of going into the hyperbolic time chamber and power leveling, I really can't give any advice. The lightning strikes deliver unavoidable damage, and all you can do is work on giving Ursula a concussion and gritting your teeth through the relentless beatings. Best of luck out there, soldiers. Now before we hit our top 5, please remember that for all of the super bosses, I was max level with the ultimate weapon in tow. This means that while I was overpowered to hell, the bosses are still mechanically difficult and still provide an extreme challenge if you battle them around a more reasonable level, like say 60 or 70. Number 5. Kurt Zisa. I'm not ashamed to admit that this playthrough on Proud mode was the first time that I successfully defeated all of the super bosses, and the first one to make this list is Kurt Zisa. After you seal the keyhole at Hollow Bastion, you'll need to find the magic carpet at Aladdin's house to encounter Kurt in the deserts of Agrabah. Kurt Zisa, while impressive to look at, is not too complicated. He will start things off by sealing your magic, meaning that you will have to rely on your items to heal up. You will have to target the orbs that he carries in each hand with physical attacks. Unleash a single combo before backing off, as you will trigger his revenge value upon hitting your combo finisher, which comes out as a whirlwind spin. After destroying both orbs, Kurt will drop to the ground and lose all bodily control of his head. Unleash combos, Ars Arcanum, Ragnarok, anything really to get off the big damage at this point. Once Zisa regains his composure, he will activate the bullshit bulwarks, which make him immune to physical damage. For this phase, you'll have to hit him with magic to break the bulwarks. Thunder or gravity are good spells to use. If mana becomes a problem, hitting him with the Keyblade will cause bubbles to drop, which will keep your magic up. After you destroy the shield, he will once again fall to the ground and grovel while you lay another smackdown. After he wakes up, he will revert back to the first phase in which he will seal your magic. This will also trigger the second phase of the battle. At this stage, he will introduce his most dangerous attack, where he pulls inspiration from Ursula and does his best imitation of an Apache helicopter. Well-executed guards or dodge rolls will benefit you greatly, as this attack is relentless and has the highest chance of killing you. Once he completes this, the fight goes back to business as usual. Repeat the process until you leave Kurt's shell behind to waste away in the desert and be rewarded with learning Zantetsuken, in addition to receiving a hefty amount of experience. Fun fact, Kurt Caesar was named after a fan who won a competition to have their name included in Kingdom Hearts. The more you know. Number 4, the Neverland Phantom. Both the coolest looking and the most hated boss in the entire game, the Neverland Phantom is found at the clock tower after talking to Tinkerbell with Peter Pan in your party. This boss struck fear into my heart as a kid, and as an adult, I can't say things have gotten that much better. The Neverland Phantom ranks far down on my list of favorite bosses because the entire fight is a minigame. He kicks things off by casting Final Fantasy's famous Doom spell onto Peter Pan. When he does this, the clock will begin to tick down. Once it hits 0, your party member will be killed and cannot be revived. The Phantom will then cast Doom on your remaining party member, and finally on you. To counter this, you'll need to cast Stop on the clock tower to freeze the hands in place. Unfortunately, Stop will only last for 1 minute, so you'll have to repeatedly cast it on the clock tower throughout the fight. I time myself for casting Stop after every 3 attacks that I landed on the Phantom. Phantom will fly throughout the area, shooting off homing dark spheres that deal damage over time when they connect. Casting Aurora or Eriga will nullify this entirely. When not firing off these strange whiffs, the Phantom will fly up close and personal to take a swipe at your cheeks. And that's it. The Phantom's attack roster is incredibly shallow, but I'm not complaining as I'm counting every blessing that I get. As for actually dealing damage to the boss, the Neverland Phantom has a large orb underneath his shady trench coat. The color of the orb will indicate what kind of attack you need to hit him with. If the orb is red, then you'll have to use fire. If the orb is blue, then blizzard. Yellow means thunder, and white means melee attack. You'll be allowed to hit the orb 3 times before it fizzles out, to which you will then have to wait until it lights up again. This fight will take a long ass time and requires an ass ton of magic. Equip any magic boosting gear and keyblades that you have, in addition to any magic boosting abilities such as MP Rage. Make sure you take Goofy over Donald and have Goofy equipped with MP Gift. I highly recommend the Ultima Weapon or Diamond Dust Keyblades if you have them. Stock your inventory completely with ethers or elixirs as you will absolutely need them. Defeating the Phantom rewards you with the Stopka spell, which at this point of the game is a booters of a reward. This fight isn't fun, it's not cool, it's not quirky, it's not difficult, it's stressful and tedious and deserves to be forgotten in 2001. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Number 3, the Ice Titan. The Ice Titan is a very different boss, as he isn't someone that you can just club to death. Discovered in the gold match at Olympus Coliseum, this fight tests your ability to dodge roll and guard. To deal damage to the Ice Titan, you'll have to guard against his icicle projectiles. Now before we start talking about the nitty gritty of this fight, let me prelude this by saying, do not use Aeroga. He will counter by throwing larger dark icicles that you cannot reflect or guard, as long as you have Arrow up. Now, his first phase has him alternating between 2 variations of icicles. The first is a direct stream of 5 icicles, and the second is a wave of 3 volleys of icicles. Guard at the appropriate time to reflect the incoming projectiles back to begin the chip game. Understand now that unless your guard is perfectly timed, you will be eating 1 or 2 icicles per guarded barrage. After bouncing back enough of them, the Ice Titan will take an arrow to the knee, prompting you to go in to take his Medulla Oblongata for a Rochambeau. Once he regains his footing, he'll become more aggressive with his attacks and introduce the Ice Geyser attack, which bears a strong resemblance to Cerberus' Vomit Geysers. Be quick on your dodges and barrel rolls, while keeping an eye out for opportunities to reflect icicles. It gets a bit tricky when he introduces his Icicle Crash in conjunction with his other attacks. After enough deflections, the Ice Titan will take another arrow to the knee, where you will do the huge. When he reaches his last 2 bars of health, he will enter his final phase. After standing up for the final time, the Ice Titan will level up the 5-gum experience and intertwine an impressive arsenal of all of his attacks thus far, and in rapid succession. In this phase, he gives off big Castle Crasher's Ice King energy, as he will be bombarding you with attacks, leaving no room to breathe. This fight becomes hectic and messy, as you have so many magical attacks and sounds filling your screen up that you'll become accustomed to hearing Sora's cries of pain on repeat. Tough it out and press on with the deflections, and you will be rewarded with the Diamond Dust Keyblade. Before we unveil the top 2, I wanted to take a moment to extend my continuous gratitude for all of the recent love that has been shown on the channel. I was on the brink of giving up on doing YouTube altogether, but your kind words, funny comments, and encouraging support have motivated me to keep creating content. 1,000 subs is something I never expected to see, and it's wild to think that there are that many of you who thought to hit that shiny red button for an insignificant guy like me. While this isn't anything extraordinary or unique to my channel, this 1,000 sub special boss ranking is my commitment to you to keep the good times rolling, the helpful boss strats in tow, and hopefully a smile or two to your beautiful faces. Once more, thank you. Now, I want to acknowledge that the number 1 spot could realistically belong to either of the 2 entries that we're about to look at. Both of these bosses are incredibly difficult in their own right, and ultimately it comes down to personal experience when drawing a line between Kingdom Hearts' most difficult boss and the runner-up. So here we go. The number 2 most difficult boss is... Number 2, Unknown. It was a true toss-up between placing this at the number 2 spot or the number 1 spot. I ultimately went with dropping Unknown at the penultimate silver medal slot, and it's well deserved. While all super bosses are difficult in their own right, the power difference between Unknown and the former 3 is marginal. Found at Hollow Bastion in the Castle Chapel after sealing the final keyhole, you simply need to step into the inconspicuous portal of darkness to begin the most ominous battle yet. Unknown has highly aggressive attacks and is an incredibly nimble fighter. He has one of the most diverse move pools in the entire game and teleports between just about every attack, making him difficult to hit. His most iconic attack is his Mirror Wall #Yu-Gi-Oh! This attack involves him throwing out a wall of energy that will deflect any incoming attacks. Unknown will also attack through his own wall using his lightsabers, typically with a delayed 2/ combo. Interchangeably, he also boasts an incredibly drawn-out spinning saber combo that will require you to dodge roll or guard against multiple times in succession. When not fulfilling his dream of being a Sith Lord, Unknown will generate 2 large energy balls at location which deal damage should you be standing in them. His other basic energy attack has him generating a ring of orbs which after a brief delay will all fire a laser at you that requires solid timing to dodge or block. His final energy attack is one of his ultimates. Unknown will become a living disco ball and surround himself in energy before firing off multi-directional lasers that sweep the arena. When he gets low on health, his energy attacks will turn red and he will introduce his final move, where he generates a lineup of delayed laser blasts that will zip after you following another brief delay. His final phase is incredibly difficult to deal with because anytime that he's not attacking, he's phasing away, and anytime that he's not phasing away, he's attacking. Coupling this with his generous invincibility frames and super armor, and you will feel like you're smacking your head against a wall in no time. If you've had the tribulation of facing off against this beast of a boss, then you know the real reason why he's a strong contender for topping our list. His Shock Seal. This attack will lock Sora's attacks and randomize your commands. You will then need to select the correct command, Release, at the correct moment to break the seal. I suggest hovering your cursor over one of the commands and waiting for it to cycle to the Release command. Don't try chasing after it. Now, as you're doing that, make sure to hightail Sora's ass as far away from Unknown as you can manage and hope that Donald and Goofy are willing enough to donate their lives to the cause. Because while you're locked, you'll take rapid health damage and Unknown is still free to attack you. Should you choose the incorrect command, Shock, Sora will most likely die immediately and you'll have to restart the fight. What a load of goat scrot. The boss is already hard as is, but the fact that he boasts an instant kill technique that is largely left to RNG is tilting beyond belief. While I was able to beat Unknown in 2 tries, I never felt confident for a single moment in my fight against him, and once again, I was at Super Saiyan God status when I faced him. Mad props to anyone else out there who has beaten this guy on Proud Mode. Number 1, Sephiroth. Don't act surprised, everyone's favorite Final Fantasy villain tops this chart as the biggest baddie in Kingdom Hearts 1 Proud Mode. As a kid, I never stood a chance against Sephiroth, and in my mind it was always that one hard boss that I had never overcome. Until now. Sephiroth starts off with quick horizontal slash attacks that you can guard against. After he attacks, it will then be your turn to attack. While hitting Sephiroth, don't be discouraged at the unbudging health bar. You're doing damage. He just has so much HP that the game isn't representing the hits he's taking. He will interchange his horizontal slashes with Stigma, aka his Flame Pillar attack. Stigma takes up a generous amount of the arena and continually damages you for each tick that you remain in it. Even though he starts off easy enough with only these 2 attacks, the damage they inflict is no joke, but it's only a taste of what's to come. Dealing enough damage will progress Sephiroth to his second phase, where he will now sprint at you and extend his offense into more frequent attacks and teleportation slashes. He will also introduce one of the most devastating attacks in Kingdom Hearts history, Descend Heartless Angel, commonly misheard as Sin Harvest. Sephiroth will blink to one end of the arena and call out the namesake of the attack, and if he is not interrupted, a halo will appear above your head and you will then be knocked down to 1 HP and have all of your mana drained. Sephiroth will always follow this up with a kill shot if it lands, so be prepared for the follow-up. On a fun note, if you don't have the second chance ability equipped, you will instead be instantly killed. Because of this attack alone, your itemization strictly requires elixirs and nothing less. He will also introduce his second deadliest attack, Octaslash. Sephiroth will prelude the attack by calling out, "Prepare yourself," before unleashing an impressive high-speed sword combo that ends in a ground-splitting finale. Abusing iframes or perfectly executing defensive countermeasures are going to be required to avoid being obliterated by this attack. Push him down to his last 2 bars of health and he will enter his third phase. Sephiroth will surround himself with a glowing aura and add shadow flares to his arsenal, which constantly spawn as he runs around the arena, as well as being unleashed when he performs his spinning sword slash, denoted by him calling out, "Dodge this!" He will also cast Heartless Angel without the audio prompt and finally introduce his ultimate attack, Meteor. Sephiroth will offer you a ticket to the Promised Land and gain iframes as he drops several meteors from the sky that will deal initial impact damage. While gliding at the appropriate time will spare you from this, the meteors will then orbit Sephiroth several times, dealing moderate to heavy damage as they collide into you before he summons a large singularity to be thrown at you for the finisher. Sephiroth will then interchange all of his attacks introduced thus far with incredible speed and unrelenting determination. Yes, you can sell out and strike raid spam to victory, but for my footage I minimize the amount of strike raids that I personally use because I wanted my victory in the Platinum match to be legit and fair for the most part. But to each their own. Overall, Sephiroth is up there with Unknown as far as having one of the most diverse move pools, hard to predict offensive measures, and unforgiving damage outputs. As I said, these 2 are interchangeable as far as taking the #1 spot, and fighting both at level 99 with Ultimate Weapon, they still gave me a run for my money, which goes to show just how hard these 2 actually are. I personally gave Sephi the #1 spot for the mere factor that when facing Unknown, you are accompanied by your party, meaning that you have access to the Donald Cures and Eragas, and the Goofy MP gifts. Whereas, when you fight Sephiroth, you must do it alone. Well, that brings us to the end of our video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you don't agree with some of these picks, let me know in the comments what you think. And until then, take care, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you soon for the next one. Bye-bye!